Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending our early SIG 15 Growback seminars. We have the pleasure of listening to Pille Nellis. Pille Nellis is a PhD student from the University of Tartu. Her research is mainly focused on inclusive education in early childhood education. She has 17 years of experience in 4 kindergartens in several roles: as a regular teacher, music and physical education teacher, head teacher, and principal. Since 2011, she is working at the University of Tartu. So please, Pille, you can start when you want.
Thank you for this introduction. Hello for everyone. And before I will start introducing my research, I'll tell you the story, what explains the reason I'm interested in inclusive education. It takes 1 minute. Is inclusive education an essential shift in education? Are all children worth teaching? Unfortunately, there has been a time in Estonia when one agency decided whether a child with special needs was worth teaching or not. Decisions what were sometimes made consisted only 3 words: not for teaching. Is it human? I have opposite experience helping a child with autistic traits, using appropriate teaching methods for achieving the individual learning goals, which were in accordance with this student level of knowledge and considered her maximum potential. We achieved good success. This girl graduated from elementary school, high school, and university. What I learned from this experience was that, yes, all children are always worth teaching. Therefore, I believe that inclusive education is an essential shift in education. And it's the reason why inclusive education is my research topic. And the main idea of my research is, as Nadina said, to create the framework of inclusive education in early childhood education context. My research is a part of larger project, which is supported by EEA financial mechanism and Norwegian financial mechanism. And the first step related to my doctoral studies was to carry out the systematic literature review. And today I will introduce the results of this study. This study has conducted together with my supervisor, Professor Margus Pedaste. As the title of my presentation referred to, the main result was the model of the inclusive education. I changed the, yeah. In recent decades, inclusive education has been a major area of interest globally within the field of early childhood education. Implementation of inclusive education is still a challenge in the contemporary educational systems. Regardless, it has been a major area of interest in educational research during the last 3 decades, and the basic idea in majority of international policy documents of education. Inclusion has a positive effect on children's academic skills and social development. And the quality of early childhood education plays an important role in children's development. Furthermore, its low quality can have long-lasting harmful effects. Therefore, it's crucial to support the quality of implementation of inclusive education, but it's challenge whether the concept itself isn't clear and clearly understood. Inclusive education is a multidimensional concept, and the most important aspect for a successful implementation is understanding of a conception of inclusive education. Still, misunderstanding about conceptualization and the diversity of definitions exist. There are discussions about a narrow and a broad definition of inclusive education. In addition, the question about the possibility of one universal definition have posed. On the contrary, Florian, for example, believes that developing a universally accepted definition may represent a positive step towards developing an inclusive practice. And the diversity of key characteristics across early childhood settings points to a need for research that investigates the key characteristics which are important for implementation of inclusive education. Implementation of inclusive education isn't sufficient when only one part of the system focuses on it. It means that inclusive education must be in focus in every level of educational system. And it means that awareness of key characteristics is crucial. And based on this, we formulated the research problem where inclusive education has been widely applied as a policy in early childhood education. But however, the concept has been not clearly operationalized. And we think that a good model could fill this gap. And the aim was of this literature review was to provide a definition that would integrate the most important aspects in case of different definitions used in the literature, operationalize the contemporary concept of inclusive education through characteristics identified in the different studies, and provide a framework to apply inclusive education on early childhood level. And based on existing theoretical frames used in other contexts. And to reach this aim, we posed two research questions. What is the definition of inclusive education in early childhood education context, and what are the key characteristics of inclusive education in the early childhood education context? To reach this aim, a systematic literature review was conducted. And I started with systematic literature search procedure to identify studies reporting on inclusive education in the early childhood education context. Articles were searched in the EBSCO host web repository. And using the appropriate keywords, 580 sources were discovered. After the publication, 423 unique publications remained. The full text of an article had to be available for it to be included. Therefore, the books, previews of the dissertations, summaries of the books, and brief summaries of reports were excluded. The abstract of each discovered article was screened to see if the article met the inclusion criteria. If so, full articles were retrieved and again reviewed to ensure the article met inclusion criteria. If insufficient information was presented in the abstract, full texts were retrieved for further examination. In the stage of eligibility, 197 articles full text were assessed. For increasing the reliability of study, 10% or 58 discovered articles abstracts were examined by the two researchers. In the case of different opinions, about differences were discussed until a common understanding was reached. For increasing the reliability, the Cohen kappa were calculated and the weighted kappa was 0.682, what is valued as a substantial result. And 55 articles were found for further analysis. Then these remaining 55 articles were coded and analyzed based on research questions. The analysis have made by one researcher. Then the qualitative inductive content analysis was used for the analyzing of the articles. In the first stage of analysis, I read the articles and found meaningful items from the text. Meaningful entities were words, phrases, sentences, or sets of sentences that included definitions of inclusive education and characteristics of inclusive education. Significant units were names or codes. And in the second step, codes with similar content were merged and categories were created. In the third phase, similar categories were merged into large and main categories that would describe the definition of inclusive education or the dimensions of key features. And a similar scheme was used for both research questions. And about the results. Based on our analysis, on a general level, there could be differentiated two categories of aspects in the definitions of inclusive education: philosophical sense and practical sense. And the philosophical sense is explained through four aspects: access, the human rights, belonging and membership, and social integration. This philosophical sense includes the value, beliefs, and approaches of inclusion expressed in culture, decisions, and choices at all levels of the educational system. And what these aspects means. Access means education that promotes access to educational opportunities for all children and embodies appropriate values and policies. It requires a general positive attitude in the society towards inclusive education, where inclusion of children with special needs is appreciated and self-evident. For example, in initial teacher training, there should be more emphasis on involving children with special needs in different subjects throughout the curriculum, so that it would be natural for every preschool teacher to take into account children's differences in the learning process. Human rights. Human rights means that the children with special needs are accepted and appreciated in every preschool and by each preschool teacher. Offering special support is a normal part of the preschool curriculum and the teachers' daily activities. It means discussion about how to involve a child with special needs and how to do it in the most appropriate way. Such discussions are needed on different levels, teacher, institution, and state level. And the third aspect, belonging and membership, means in a preschool that all children feel that they are members of the society and the group. All children participate in the joint activities at all times and receive exactly the same amount of attention from the teacher. This means, for example, that teachers acknowledge that they supervise and work with children with special needs while also working with children without special needs. They should not delegate these tasks solely to the support specialists or other members of the team. They ask teachers ask questions and take into account the ideas of children with special needs when planning schooling and educational activities. And the third aspect of philosophical and social integration means opportunities to socialize with peers and society in general. And having the appropriate knowledge and knowing the positive effects of inclusive classroom could help create positive social integration. It is very important to prepare teachers, children with typical development needs, children with special needs, and families for the idea of inclusive classroom. It would be helpful if these principles and their organization were described in the curriculum of each preschool. And according to our literature review, the practical sense could be described more specifically through three aspects: participation, support, and development of every child. And practical sense means activities and practical applications that promote inclusion. Participation means placement with meaningful engagement of all children in the mainstream preschool, and it is related to access to education and its regulation at the state level. At the institution level, it means that preschools are ready to welcome all children with and without special needs. Changes in the structure of preschool staff are also essential for full inclusion in order to provide a sufficient support system. At the institution level, this requires that the preschool curriculum outlines principles and strategies for providing meaningful participation for every child in preschool groups. And support refers to the adaptation of the activities and instruction in ways that encourages access and active participation in the group, and offering different types of support to different children. In addition, it requires that all adults involved have also access to high-quality professional development. Teachers' professional development, for example, through in-service trainings and professional learning communities is essential. For example, the development plan of the preschool could outline the principles and arrangement of how to identify the need for professional development, how professional development is supported, and how many hours, for example, each teacher use for professional development every year. And the final aspect of the practical sense development of every child involves reaching the full potential of every child. It means that the teachers have taught about how to assess and analyze children's development and how to use the results of the analysis. And based these categories and aspects, we formulated the definition of inclusive education. Inclusive education in the context of early childhood education is an educational approach that takes into account human rights and provides all children with access to highly quality education in a learning environment where children feel social integration and belongingness in their wider social network despite their special needs. It is achieved by meaningful participation of all children and personalized support in the development of each child's full potential. In interpreting this definition, we can first point out that inclusive education is an approach. Second, the subjects of inclusive education are children who perceive themselves in a specific way, whereas realizing this, each child's full potential is the goal. And thirdly, it refers to the methods, active, meaningful participation and personal support by which approach, perception, and potential are achieved. So, and finally, in our study, contemporary inclusive education was operationalized by 14 categories of key characteristics on 5 levels. Child characteristics, physical inclusion, social inclusion, and psychical inclusion in the child level. Teacher characteristics and classroom practices on the teacher level. Family involvement and family support on the family level. School culture and structural characteristics on the institutional level, and policy and legislation, cooperation, resources and funding, and monitoring and evaluation on the state level. And based on the definition and categories of characteristics of inclusive education on 5 levels, we created a new model it's not. We created this model you can see now. And this model consists of 3 circles. The definition of inclusive education is at the center, presented in a light blue color. This circle is divided into 2 different parts, showing these dimensions of the definition, the philosophical sense and the practical sense, accompanied by their specific features or aspects. Both dimensions of the definition should be understood and interpreted in the same way by all related stakeholders. It is highly recommended that a similar understanding of inclusive education is achieved. This supports the implementation of inclusive education. Effective and high-quality implementation starts from the approach and mindset towards inclusive education, requiring discussion, cooperation, and inclusion within and between different levels of the model. Then the darker blue circles present how the key characteristics found during this literature review of inclusive education in early childhood education are operationalized. At the center of each level is the subject presented in green, related to the characteristics or responsible for providing the access and ensuring the quality of the characteristics on a particular level, thereby influencing the implementation of inclusive education. The arrows describe relatedness and influence between different levels of the model. Child level, the middle circle of the model, the middle blue circle. Outcomes are achieved through implementation of inclusive education, and all the other levels should consider the child's characteristics and provide physical, psychical, and social inclusion of each child. Child level is directly influenced by family, teacher, institution, and state level. And the key characteristics of teacher level, teacher characteristics and classroom practice influence the child, family, and institution levels. Teacher level is influenced by family, institution, and state level. The key characteristics of family level, family support and family involvement are essential for implementing inclusive education in early childhood education, influencing child, teacher, and institution level. And family level is influenced by state, teacher, and institution levels. And the key characteristic of institution level influence child, teacher, and family levels and are influenced by teacher, family, and state levels. And the characteristics of state level influence all other levels. In conclusion, this model directly shows the responsibility of each stakeholder and could therefore support the implementation of inclusive education. It also helps to understand that the main outcome of implementing inclusive education using the key characteristics on different levels is providing physical, social, and psychical inclusion, considering children's individual characteristics. And for conclusion, this model needs further development as it is developed based on the literature. And the further studies should focus on the improvement of this model based on the wider feedback collected from practitioners in empirical studies. And therefore, I have started with case study. Secondly, these findings and this model are valuable for designing curricula for improving early childhood teachers' skills to apply inclusive education. The curriculum should consider the characteristics of teacher level, especially classroom practices, and also some other characteristics what influences teachers' skills to apply inclusion. And further, this model should promote the evaluation, the needs of professional development of teachers and implementation of inclusive education in general. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Phil. So now there's time for questions. You can formulate your questions in the chat, or you can use the raise your hand icon you have at the bottom of your screen, or you can just unmute yourself and speak. Okay, so I have a question. Which are your plans after this study? Which are your plans? Which will be your next study related to this?
Yeah, I have planned my next steps already, and I have started with these steps. I have prepared the case study, and I have chosen 4 preschools, and yes, I have collected the data using focus group interviews, observations, questionnaire, and now I'm analyzing this data. And but this study, in this study, I analyzing the data based on deductive approach, because I have the model, and I tried to find the characteristics and features which suits the characteristics described in this model. And the main idea is to find are all these characteristics relevant in the preschool daily activities.
Sounds really interesting. Thank you. Anyone wants to ask anything else? Yeah, Erika, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, Phil. Thank you for your presentation. That was very interesting. And I was looking at your model, and I was wondering, so you mentioned these 5 levels, and I was wondering if in your systematic review, did you find the pattern, or if there were more studies that look at one level more than the others? So if research was more focused on one of them or not?
If I remember correctly, there were that in one study focused rather on some aspects and didn't include all key characteristics we found during this key characteristics. And of course, the characteristics related to the practice in classroom were highly or most frequently found.
I think we have another question.
Yeah, so thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was wondering about the theoretical and methodological framings that exist in what you are calling a systematic literature review. So there were about 55, you can zoom down into 55 studies according to your criteria. Can you say something about what kind of patterns emerge if one is interested in the kind of theories that are circulating in this literature and the kind of methods that are being employed.
I'm not sure I did understand the question, but
okay, so let me reframe it. All studies, all research implicitly or explicitly, and in the area of special education and inclusion, it is not uncommon that that theories are implied. We don't go out and do research in some kind of a neutral fashion. We all have ideas about what makes up the world. And you started off very eloquently by talking about your story about decisions in Estonia. So there is an implied theoretical point of departure. So in these 55 odd studies that you have reviewed, what was there any theorizing going on? Were people saying that they were theoretically using particular concepts? What kind of methods were relevant in the studies? Because it would, I would feel that that would allow you to then go forward. If you find that there are many interview studies, that then you could try and address the issue of the hegemony of interviews. Do you understand?
Yeah, I try to answer this question. Mostly of these articles, which I discovered based on my research question and inclusion criteria, they used these empirical studies, and one theoretical framework what was were used were this bioecological model of developed by the originally was this Bronfenbrenner's ecological model and developed later on 19th. Yes, and they called now it bioecological model. And this model was basis of several studies.
Okay, thank you. And what is your then, what are you aligned towards theoretically?
Yes, I started this systematic literature review to find out what is the situation in the field and related to inclusive education. And yes, I found some models. One is this Bronfenbrenner's model, and the other one is developed quite recently. I can't say the name of this organization, but in the literature review, I don't took I didn't consider any theoretical approach, but now when I am moving ahead, I realized that my research is related to hermeneutic approach, and I try to catch the whole diversity of the whole context.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. if we don't have more questions, I think we can finish today here. And thank you very much, Pille, for attending and for presenting your work for us. It's been a pleasure listening to you, and hope to see you around next time on the other seminars.
Yes, I very appreciate this invitation, and I'm very thankful if you can write me or send some recommendations, and yes, I try to create also my network. So yes, that I